Alright, so now we are going to create a custom decorator. So there are two types of routes. The one is private, one is public. So we can create a decorator, something like if we can type it probably this way, and just private, and this will protect this route. Instead of doing this, if we can do this, then probably in future if you want to add more guards here, then we can add here internally in this decorator. So we'll just be using one decorator here that is private, and it will be protected automatically. So let's do it. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create one folder here, and its name will be decorator dot just decorator. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create, file name as private dot decorator dot ts. Now what I can do, I can create a function export const private, and I can create an arrow function here, and then if I go back in auth controller, so what I want to do, I want to just call this use guard from here. Make sure you are not writing at rate, since we will be applying at rate before private. When it will find something like at rate private, then it will execute the private method, and at the ultimately it will execute use guards as well. So we'll have to import use guard as well as JWT auth guard here. Okay, now we can go ahead and define this route as private. Okay, so we'll, since this is a method, so we'll have to call this way. Okay, fine. If you hover over it, you see like private is a method decorator as well as class decorator, so it will work both here and here as well. Okay, so what I'm gonna do next, I'm going to run this application, and then I will try to verify if this is working or not. So we have added private on get profile. So after authentication, after login, or without authentication, if we are not logged in, then we should not be able to access this details, and if we are logged in, then we should be able to access our profile. So let's try this out. If I go back in get profile right now, probably my access token would have expired. So if I try to execute, I'm getting unauthorized, and that is correct, means this is being protected. And let's try to see if this works after login. So I'm logged in right now, and now if I try to get my profile, I'm getting the details, means this @rate private is working. So this decorator is nothing, it's just like a simple function. So when it reaches to this line, the code of execution, it will execute this method, and it will find this method as well, so use guards, and then it will verify all the checks which is there in the JWT auth guard here. And since it is extending the default auth guard of passport, so it will execute the strategy of JWT strategy file which we have created. We have added it as a provider, so passport will automatically know that it needs to use JWT strategy instance which we have created, and based on this configuration it will execute the validate method after getting the payload from access token, and again it will attach this user object in the request, and after the successful I mean successfully doing all these things, it will call this method and where we are returning our profile. One more thing I would like to do before I finish this video. So as you see, we created this folder here in auth, but we will be using in most of the modules since we want to protect our most of the routes. There will be few public routes, but mostly the routes will be private, so it's better to keep it in common module. So I will just drag it here in the common module, and if I go here, let's rename it private route, or we can just keep it private as well, that's fine. That's one more thing we need to take care. We are using JWT auth guard, so this is a provider, so we need to verify two things. First, this JWT auth guards must be exported from auth module, and this is exported, so here it is correct. And now we need to import auth module in common module to use JWT auth guard. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go in common module and I will open common module and I'm going to import this module. Now it should work as expected, so let's try it out. So if I try to request, I see I'm getting the response, and if I remove the token it shouldn't work. So it's working perfectly fine. So as we have imported it here, but the one thing we should be aware of, like common module is just a central repository of all the things like utilities, like let's say decorator, exceptions, interceptors, but we are directly not using it in common module. So what we can do here is we can just remove auth module from here, and we can also remove import. Instead we can uh, import it wherever we are using this what we can say this one private decorator. So wherever we are using in that module, we need to what we can resolve this JWT auth card. So in that module we will be importing auth modules. It might be a little confusing, but just understand that private is not a provider. Instead, JWT auth guard is a provider. So wherever we are using private, we need to resolve JWT auth guard, and in that module we will be using, they will be actually importing auth modules. So let's say in user module, if you want to use private, then what we can do, instead of this, we can just use private. Okay, and we should import here auth module. Sometime you may notice while doing while writing this code, you may notice it is still working without this import. Alright, so it may feel like it is still working without imports. Okay, so I'm facing some error. Nest cannot create user module instance. So there are two ways to solve this problem, since if you notice here a circular dependency between modules. So we are importing user modules in auth module, and now we are trying to import auth module in user module. So we can fix this in two ways. Either we can extract common logic and put it in common module, and then import it in both this module, auth and user. Another way, let's say in our case, auth service is right now using user service, so definitely we could have created a separate service if we want in common service, I mean common module. But if you are not able to do that, then there's an approach of importing auth module in user module if auth module is right now already imported user module. Then what we can do here, instead of directly importing this way, we can use forward ref. If you see here, it is also mentioned forward ref. So how this will be done, forward ref, and then here we need to use auth module. Now we are just getting a reference of auth module. Now it will work. Even if you try it now, it should work. And if you remove this, we'll get unauthorized error. So whenever you are saying you are facing cyclic dependency, then in that case you can use forward ref, or you can extract common logic and keep it in separate module.